Hi, welcome to Open Mind. I'm your host, Barb Angelo, and we're here exploring all the good stuff for the mind, body, and soul. I like to interview people who are making a difference somehow, whether it's with a service, a business, or a practice. They're helping to inform and inspire and uplift people. And my guest today is one such person. Today my guest is Ronna Stedman. And Ronna, welcome first of all.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks for being here, especially on a rainy day like this. It was supposed to be sunny out today and it didn't really work out that way. So both of us are checking our hair to make sure that it looks okay. Ronna, what we're going to be talking about today, and I find this not just fascinating, but it's something that I know that really works. You're an EFT practitioner.
That's right.
EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's also known as tapping.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to talk about today is what tapping is. Do you mind? Should I call it tapping or EFT or
You
how?
can call it tapping. That's
okay,
fine.
good.
Yeah.
Let's call tapping. That way,
It's simple.
It's simple because it is tapping. It really is
It
tapping
is.
yourself. And we're going to talk about what it really is, how it works, and how it can help you. And we're going to hopefully have time to do a little demo by the end of the show and to show you just how easy tapping is. So first things first, how did you get involved in tapping, and how did you find out about it, and how did you get involved in it?
Well, I've always been open to alternative healing, energy healing, so it doesn't surprise me that EFT fell in my lap. While I was in graduate school at Rutgers University, there was a professor there that very briefly introduced us to EFT. So she had the whole class, tapping along, and, we kind of felt it was a little silly, because you're like tapping on your face, and you're like, how is this going to help me?
Right.
But by the time we were done the exercise, I found that I felt calm and I felt focused and relaxed, and it did pique my interest. After that, I was able to use it at home outside of the classroom. I was invited to a party and I was feeling a little anxious, and I said, okay, this is a good opportunity to use this technique and really test it out. And what I found was that my anxiety levels, went from an 8 and went almost down to a 0. I had a little bit of anxiety left, but so I was very impressed with how quickly it worked and how effective it was. So after that, I was showing everybody how to do EFT.
I found this great new thing. You have to try it.
Right.
And did they respond the same way you did? Like they felt a little silly at first, or
Right.
did they believe in it?
Well,
a lot of people just
no.
don't believe in things.
A lot of people were like, that's too weird. I'm not doing it, like, what is this? But the people who were open to it, they were like, wow, this really works. So I think it was just getting across the barrier of this is something different that I'm not used to. So then I really went into getting certified in EFT. Synchronicity led me to a training, and I was able to become certified. Now, at the same time that I was learning this EFT, I was also working as a mental health clinician in community mental health. And I really wanted to work with my clients using this technique. Based on what I experienced myself, I thought it could really help them.
Right. So you are a licensed therapist.
Yes, I'm a licensed social worker.
Social worker. And so when you talk about how much it helped you, and you said your anxiety went from an 8 down to almost a 0 or a 1.
Right.
Do you use it primarily for anxiety with your patients, or what do you use it for?
Well, you can use this. So Gary Craig, the founder of EFT, he says try it on everything. And it's really true. You can use this technique to change a lot of things about yourself, about your emotions, and about your behaviors. But with my clients, most of the clients that I worked with in community mental health was anxiety-based disorders. Obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, and the one that I like to work with the most is post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
And so for the clients that were willing to get over the weirdness of it, those clients compared to my clients who didn't want to do this technique, I noticed a significant difference in the reduction of their symptoms, and for some people the elimination of their symptoms.
So let's talk about what it is really. So is it acupressure? Are you, I've read and I know a little bit about tapping because I've used it in hypnosis when I was training for hypnosis. And when I train my hypnosis students, we do touch on tapping. And I tell them it's something they can incorporate into their practice. So I know that you're tapping on meridian points, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. So it's very similar to acupressure or acupuncture.
Without the needles.
Without the needles.
See, that's not so weird. I like that idea.
Right, a lot of people like that idea. Instead of, so maybe I'll start with what it is exactly that we're doing when we're doing the tapping, okay? So the idea is that we have an energy system that runs through our body called the meridian system. So not only are we a physical being, an emotional being, we're also an energetic being. So what happens when something upsetting happens? We have a physical response, right? Our muscles tense up. We have an emotional response, maybe we go into fear. And then we also have an energetic response. So our energy system that's running through our body becomes disrupted. So the meridians are kind of like wires, that go through the body. And when that upsetting thing happens, the wire becomes kinked. Okay. So to unkink the wire, we are tapping on the meridian endpoints, okay, that run through the body. Now, as we're tapping, what's happening? The wire's becoming unkinked and the energy is flowing. Well, on a practical level, what's happening is that the emotional attachment to what happened fades. And it also heals the physical body as well.
So I know, again, as a practitioner and working with energy, because everything's energy,
right?
So you can't escape it.
Right.
The idea that I know is that so much of our physical, whether it's ailments or illness, comes from emotions.
That's true.
And that is a great subject that we're going to talk about, but we have to take a little break right now. So
great.
We'll be back in a few, and we're going to talk about the wonderful world of tapping, and we'll be right back. Hi, we're back. You're watching Open Mind. I'm your host, Barb Angelo, and we're having a really great discussion today with my guest, Ronna Stedman. We're talking about a thing called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, or tapping. And this is an amazing and very, I don't want to call it profound, but it's something that works, and it's almost in its simplicity. It's so simple that people have a hard time maybe believing it. And we were talking earlier and you were saying that people kind of think it's a little weird because you're literally tapping on points of your face.
Right.
But how much it works and how great it is. And right before we broke for commercial, I was talking to you about the idea that so much of our physical illness, disease, whatever it is that we're holding in our bodies is really emotional.
That's true.
And I'd like to talk to you about, you mentioned the different ways that you can use tapping to help yourself, and PTSD, post-traumatic stress. I'd really like to talk about that now because that is a big subject, a huge subject.
Right.
And we relate, I think, a lot of soldiers coming back from war, but post-traumatic stress can come in a lot of ways.
That's true.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I have to say that every day I am awed by the effectiveness of this technique, particularly when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder can be very disruptive in someone's life. They have nightmares, they can have intrusive thoughts, they can relive the traumatic experience over and over and over again. They also tend to isolate themselves, they don't want to socialize because they can be easily triggered. So it's very disruptive and disabling for someone to have this kind of disorder. So in working in community mental health, I did work with a lot of people with post-traumatic stress disorder, some people of which who were dealing with this since they were young children.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but give me an example of like what a young child would go through that they have post-traumatic stress disorder.
So even something like witnessing violence in the home. That can be very traumatic for someone. I worked with a lot of people. One person that I worked with actually witnessed one of her parents being killed.
Oh my goodness.
And we worked through that. So when I'm working with someone with trauma, well, we do it in a very safe way. We bring them through the memory in a way that's not going to re-traumatize them. But simply speaking, we have them walk through the trauma piece by piece, kind of like a movie strip. And on each piece, we focus on the emotional charge, the emotional intensity, and also where they feel it in their body. And we do the tapping, and we bring that emotional intensity down.
So let me ask you a question. When you're walking them through, because I'm coming from a therapist's point of view as well,
Yeah.
in my mind I'm thinking about this, are you having them removed so they're watching it like watching themselves on the screen instead of being in their body and feeling it?
Right. So with someone with very severe PTSD, we take it very slow. So we'll do something like they're just watching it on a movie screen.
Okay.
You know, for some people, I'll even have them put all their traumas in a box, okay? And then they're just imagining what the box looks like, and we tap for the anxiety that comes up when they think about the box, right? And then we get to a point where they can open the box, okay? We bring that emotion down until they can actually go into the specific event itself.
And then with that box, would you have them then pull each thing out and then
That's
you work
right.
on each individual trauma?
That's right, and like you said, with the movie, we even go through something called the movie technique, where they get to watch it on the screen, so they're a little bit more detached.
And would you have, and again, I have questions because I find all methods of healing like this therapeutic, the therapy part of it, the thinking part of it, what our mind is capable of. Would you, we were talking about the box, so do you have people try to imagine, do you get to a point where it completely disappears, where they're going to imagine that trauma gone, or do you incorporate it back in their self, or how do you then do it when you're tapping on each thing? What's your goal to get down to a 0? Meaning, on a scale of 1 to 10, my anxiety is really high at 10, and 1 would be really low, and 0 would be non-existent.
Right. So we do want to get it to a 0, and we can get it to a 0. And it's interesting because some people they'll look for the emotion when we get it down to 0, and they can think about the memory. Okay, so the memory's still there, but it's just kind of faded. Kind of like when you remember that birthday party that you had when you were 12 years old. You know, like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. Where did we go again? That kind of thing. So it's still there, but there is no attachment to that memory. And sometimes they'll go looking for it. You know, they're like, wait a minute, where? I'm supposed to be upset right now, and I'm not upset. Yeah.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So in our next segment, we're not going to break for a commercial yet, but we're going to do a demo, and that's going to be the great part. You're going to show people how it works. So what I'm going to ask you now, though, is we keep talking about tapping, and if you're watching, maybe you're still not sure what we're talking about. It is literally you're touching parts of your face. Is that what
That's
you're doing?
right, yeah. So we go through different parts of the face, the collarbone, which I'll demonstrate, under the arms, on the ribs, and then also on the finger points as well.
Okay.
And we do a few rounds of those until the emotion comes down.
Okay, so let's talk about other ways that tapping can help you. And I'm hoping by the end of the show that maybe some of you out there can actually start doing it on your own or find more information. Which, before I forget, how can people find you? How can they contact you?
Oh, sure. They can find me on my website. It's www.ronnastedman.com.
Okay, great. Okay, and you know what? In that moment, perfect timing, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back in just 3 minutes, and we're going to learn how to tap when we get back. Hi, welcome back. You're watching Open Mind. I'm your host, Barb Angelo. I'm talking to Ronna Stedman today, and we're talking about EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, also known as tapping. And we've been discussing the benefits of tapping, what tapping is, and we talked about post-traumatic stress, how you can help people. Ronna's also a licensed therapist. What other things would you use tapping for?
Right. So Gary Craig, the founder of EFT, he says try it on everything, and that is absolutely true. you really can help improve your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, pretty much anything with EFT. You can increase your self-esteem using EFT. You can decrease your pain levels doing EFT. You can, if you're someone who's into sports and you feel like you're not doing as well as you would like to do,
So sports
you
performance.
can really, sports
Right.
performance.
So it helps you to stay focused.
Yeah.
I've seen books on tapping and weight loss. Have you done much with
Yes,
that? with
yeah.
your
So I
clients?
actually recently did a workshop on overeating. So you can use it with addiction. You can do it with overeating.
Addictions too. Another big
Addictions,
subject.
yes.
Post-traumatic stress and addictions are
Yes.
huge subjects right now, and people are trying to help in any way that they can. So have you had much success with addictions?
Yes,
and
yeah.
tapping?
Oh, it's wonderful. So with addictions, there are a lot of different levels, kind of like the onion,
Right, layers and layers.
Layers and
Right.
layers. So you have the surface layer of, that urge to do whatever it is you want to, like have a cigarette, have that cup of coffee, drink that, glass of alcohol.
Or take that, whatever it is.
Whatever it
yes.
is, and I even relate this with food,
Opioids.
because food can be an addiction
Yes,
too.
okay.
So, wanting to eat, what's on that plate. So that surface level, you can really bring down the urge to follow through with a behavior. But there's usually some core issues there. So what you learned from childhood, how you learn to behave, how you learn to cope, and you're also, a lot of people with addictions are also self-medicating. So there's an emotion that they're trying to
Right.
avoid. So if you can be a good detective, you can find the core issue and you can help people shift that core issue, and then their behaviors become more healthy.
So let's try this. This is the good part now. We're going to do a demo.
Okay.
And I know a little bit about tapping. I have used it, but I don't use it every day in a practice like you do.
Mhm.
So let's use me as maybe a client, a new client who doesn't really know much about tapping.
Okay.
And let's try to come up with something. Maybe it's just anxiety.
Okay.
Let's say that I have some anxiety and I'd like to lower my anxiety level. So what would you do first?
Okay.
How about if you just show us the points that you're going to tap on?
Okay, so first I would have the client tune into what they're anxious about.
Okay.
So maybe they're anxious about, being on camera, that's a good one.
Okay.
Maybe I'll mess up, something
Right.
like that. And then I
Fear
have
of failure. Maybe
fear-
that's a.
right.
I think so many people have that one. So could that be called an issue? Fear of failure, whether it's in many different parts of your life.
Definitely. So with this situation, we're tapping on a very surface issue.
Okay.
The fear of failure is a core belief system that we would have to use a little bit more detective work for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about general anxiety? Nervousness, maybe. Okay.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
Okay.
So first you tune into the anxiety,
Mhm.
all right? Then you want to rate it on a scale from 0 to 10. How strong is the anxiety? 0 is no anxiety at all. 10 is the most anxiety you could possibly have. So let's say, just for the sake of argument, you're at an 8.
Okay.
Okay? And you're feeling really anxious. So what we want to do is we want to do a setup phrase. We want to create a setup phrase. So we are acknowledging the problem and we're making a self-acceptance statement. So the problem is, I have anxiety. I feel anxious. Okay? The self-acceptance is, I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
myself.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
Is there
it
a
is.
shorter way we can say anything, or is that what you use with all of your
I
clients?
do. That's what I do.
Okay.
But we can say I'm okay with myself.
That's great too.
You want to do that?
Let's do that for the show too,
Okay.
just in case we run out of time.
Okay, that's good.
I'm okay with myself. All
I'm
right,
okay
good.
with myself.
Okay.
Okay. So as we're saying the setup phrase, we're tapping on the side of the hand, and then this is the side of the hand point. So
The
there's
karate
different-
chop part.
Right, that's right. So it's on the pinky, where the pinky side is, on this fatty part here. And we're going to be saying the setup phrase while we're tapping here.
Okay.
Then we're going to go through the other meridian points while we're doing a reminder phrase, and it's just going to be this anxiety. We're going to keep it very simple.
How about if you start and I'm just going to follow? I'm going to
You're just
mimic
going to
you.
follow? Okay,
Sure,
that
I'll
sounds
do
great.
the
A
best
little
that I
sign that
can.
says.
Okay.
Great.
Let's see
All
how
right,
I do.
So side of the hand here, just
Okay.
start tapping.
I'm going to use all my fingers.
Yes,
All of them. Okay.
perfect.
Okay.
So even though I have this anxiety,
Even though I have this anxiety,
I am okay with myself.
I'm okay with myself.
Even though I have this anxiety,
Even though I have this anxiety,
I am okay with myself.
I'm okay with myself.
Even though I have this anxiety,
Even though I have this anxiety,
I am okay with myself.
I'm okay with myself.
That's great. So now we're going to tap through the other meridian points. So tapping on the top of the head first,
head.
and you're just going to say this anxiety.
This anxiety.
Okay, the eyebrows right in the middle,
Here.
and you say this anxiety.
This anxiety.
Okay, then
Stating what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Side of the eye.
Okay. Both fingers now. Okay.
Yeah, this
Side
anxiety.
of the eye. This anxiety.
And you don't have to use both sides. I
Okay.
do, but you can use one side if you
Okay.
want to.
Let's do one side.
Okay.
I'll do one side, but you can do whatever. I'll follow you.
Under the eye.
Under the eye.
This anxiety.
This anxiety. So we're constantly repeating whatever the issue is.
Right.
Okay.
So you can keep it very simple, or you can get creative. I'm just keeping it simple,
Simple.
for these purposes
Right.
here.
Okay.
Under the nose.
Under the nose.
This anxiety. Under
Anybody
the
tuning
lip.
in right now is probably thinking,
I
what the
know.
heck is
That's
going
what
on?
I'm saying about people who are thinking that this
Right,
is really
this is
weird,
weird.
and how is this going to help me? But you
So
do
we're doing the
notice
chin.
an emotional shift.
Okay.
The chin point, right, and then the collarbone. So just
Collarbone.
there's a bone here, just a little bit underneath the collarbone here, and then we go under the arms,
Under the arms.
looking a little bit like a monkey.
No, I really want a monkey. Okay.
And then we go on the ribs.
The
this
ribs.
anxiety.
To try to find my ribs. Okay.
And then we're gonna go through the finger points. So where the nail meets the skin on the side.
Oh,
of the
I've never
finger.
heard of this one before. I know of the other points, but not this one.
Yeah, so
okay,
I
this is a
include
little more
these.
involved, right?
It is.
Okay.
I do the whole thing.
Okay.
Right? So the side of the thumb here.
Okay, here.
That's
This
that's
side, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This anxiety.
This anxiety.
Next finger. This anxiety.
Okay, my anxiety's growing. No, that's okay.
This next-
Something new, right?
Right.
Okay.
Next finger.
This
This
one here.
anxiety.
Okay.
You can say I'm really anxious. Next finger.
Okay.
I'm really anxious.
Anxious, my anxiety. Okay,
And
the
you
last
can even
one.
focus on where it is in your body too, if
Okay.
you want to. But this anxiety.
I think this is enough, trying to
Yeah.
figure this out right now.
And
And I
just-
know once you do it a few times, obviously it's not that it's difficult, it's trying to remember the sequence of everything.
Oh yeah, and it's so easy. It's so easy to remember. Like once you do it once, you're like, oh yeah, because it just goes right down the body. You know.
Okay, it works
so
through.
It's so easy to remember.
So, tell people again how they can find you.
Sure. You can find me at my website. It's www.ronnastedman.com.
And there, I'm assuming you have a lot more information on tapping,
I
who
do.
you are, how you can help people,
Yes.
which is wonderful. I'm Barb Angelo, and my website is www.barbangelo.com. I do passive regression, intuitive therapy, all kinds of good stuff for the mind, body, and soul. And tune in next week. We're here every Friday at noon, live streaming, and you can also catch the show on demand on Radio Vision Network TV. Ronna, thank you so much for coming out on this rainy day and risking your hair and my hair to come out and talk about tapping today. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, take care. See you next time.